Banjo, of Banjo and Kazooie fame, beloved video game icon of the 1990s with a well-documented falling out with his production company Rare. Has he recovered from this troubled streak after the events leading up to and after the infamous Banjo and Kazooie Nuts and Bolts? Or has he abandoned hope to ever returning to his former glory? Find out on this inclusive episode of Behind the Levels with your host, Woody Namens.
Yeah, I'm Bottles the Mole, family friend of Banjo and Tootie, and yeah, they had it rough growing up. Their mother died at a young age, and their father was forced to work sometimes up to 60 or 70 hours a week at Rusty Bucket Bay just to feed Banjo and Tootie. It was rough on them when he died.
Forced to provide for his sister Tootie, Banjo went looking for work, eventually stumbling across Rare, where he got a small role in the game Diddy Kong's Racing. The paychecks were small and far between, but he caught on and was hired along with his feathered childhood friend Kazooie, where they were to star in their own game, Banjo and Kazooie. The game absolutely skyrocketed the duo into superstardom, and before long they were household names. He was one of the biggest names in the industry, and he had a chance to capitalize this when Banjo 2 was greenlit by Rare.
Anyone keeping up with the industry at the time will remember how huge Banjo was in those days. It all got to his head. I'm not the one to sling dirt. Well, at least in a figurative sense I don't sling dirt. But his addiction became obvious pretty early. Tootie would tell me how fast he would blow his money to the honey dealers of the neighborhood. And how the honey was almost always visible around his nose. Lines of honey on the table, that kind of thing. I felt for Tootie. So yes, I turned him in.
What followed was a high-speed chase in which Banjo, at the end of his rope, fled from the law. This dashcam footage of said chase, recorded on the night of his eventual arrest, shows a drug-fueled bear almost swerve and hit a tree. Wow. Thankfully no one was harmed and Banjo was safely taken into custody.
In a public arrest, Banjo was taken in for possession of 3 different kinds of controlled substances, evading arrest, and verbal assault of an officer of the law. This shocking, now infamous audio was recorded from a bystander's phone on the night of Banjo's arrest. Banjo was released with no jail time so long as he agreed to see famous celebrity psychiatrist and drug counselor, Dr. Mumbo Jumbo. We sat down with Mumbo and asked him about the time he spent with Banjo. This is all he had to say. Oh my god, does anybody here besides that mole speak any language? Just any actual language. Despite getting off relatively easy, all was not good for Banjo. He lost major roles such as Super Smash Bros. And the Tarantino film Jinjo Unchained. Out of work and broke from his previous drug habits, Banjo got back on honey harder than ever before. Banjo ironically hit rock bottom at Mumbo's Mountain, in the opening level of the game that gave him everything. A drug-fueled and magically altered Aunt Banjo tried to take his own life. He couldn't even do that right. Desperate for solace, he accepted a new project under Rare, who is now owned by Microsoft. A game rumored to have been Banjo 3. Banjo or the public was not to be so lucky. The final project, Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, was a disaster. Banjo hid himself for months. Even close friends didn't know him to be alive or dead. It wasn't until a year later he came back out and now does humble work running a small coffee shop in Clip Clock Wood. He refused an interview with Behind the Levels, but he did offer these few words of wisdom. Don't trust Microsoft. Wise words from a wise bear. This has been Behind the Levels. Tune in next week for an interview with the hero of Time Link regarding his CDI games.